Hello and welcome everybody to the Art of Creation show, where we look at how choice creates and different possibilities for creating a future that actually works for you. I'm your host, Rebecca Boswell, and today I have the pleasure of introducing Stephanie Richardson. She has been a guest on our version 1.0 of the show, and she is back with me today. And for those of you who don't know Stephanie, perfect timing. Cool. So for those of you who don't know Stephanie, she is known for her vivacious approach to life. She is a world-renowned photographer and visual artist. You'll notice one of the beautiful pieces behind her, and also a coach. She facilitates classes in Being You. She's a certified Being You Adventures facilitator and also a certified facilitator of Access Consciousness. Awesome. It's wonderful to be desired. How does it get any better than that? And everyone wants to be on the show today. Thank you for all the energy being contributed. And the target, as I perceive Stephanie, right, out in the world, she is out there empowering lives, empowering people to choose, inviting them to enjoy their bodies, to explore their creativity, and really live life fully. So, Stephanie, I'm so thrilled to have you here with us today, and welcome.
Thank you for that amazing introduction.
Oh, well, it's so easy to have an amazing introduction when I'm simply acknowledging what is. What would it take for us to do more of that in the world?
Indeed, indeed.
Cool. So today's topic, so much fun. Not only does Stephanie play in all those different playgrounds that I mentioned, she is also a radio co-host for the Good Girls Guide to Being Wrong. And so what better topic to play with today than the mess of living and ease, having some ease with being perfectly imperfect. So Stephanie, what is that in your world? And like, what are we choosing when we're choosing perfect?
Well, when we're choosing, one of the things that I noticed about when we go to try and create something perfect, when we create an image in our head and then, head straight for, I'm going to make it look just like I imagined it, is a few things. One, you either hit that target and you get to go, I did it, which usually also comes with, I did it, but I could have done it better. Or more often than not, you don't hit exactly what you wanted to create. And so what did you do? Since you're comparing yourself against this ideal target, this ideal scene, then you get to judge yourself as being wrong for having failed, not made it again. Yeah. And now instead of being on the generative path of creation, you're in judgment. And you can't be in the generative energy of creation if you're judging you. And so that's big things that happens with trying to get it perfect, trying to get it right. The other part is that it doesn't allow us to be in the flow of a creation. So what I've noticed is that if I have something that I'd like to create and I begin without necessarily having an ideal scene, I just have a sense of what it is that I'd like to create. Mm-hmm. Then every step along the way, I get more information. And now I'm playing with the creation. I'm actually creating with the creation itself, creating with my life itself, creating with others, creating with business. So I take a step forward and the business gives me 8 more bits of information. Just like that, you start getting phone calls.
Oh my goodness, how is it getting better?
The perfection. So like right now, if we were doing the perfect show,
what would get no phone calls?
Yeah, either already failed because the phone's been ringing and I have a dog in a bag because she's like trying to cry and interrupt us, right? Like these things would be things that we'd have to get mad about. We'd be like, the phone's ringing, it's messing up my perfect show. The dog's crying, it's messing up my perfect show. And instead go, wow, I wonder what else we get to create. I wonder if we don't have that as a target, we get to just play and enjoy it a lot more like little kids enjoy the play and creation of their lives. Except for the benefits of being an adult too.
Whatever that is, let me know what it's like being an adult. I'll see if I want to join you. So really, it's like we set up this perfection trap, right? It's like we do all these things to maintain this charade, right? To live someone else's life that doesn't even really include us. And we separate so completely from what we would actually choose if we were just being and not trying to be what we think that ideal is, or what we think we should be in order to be judged as perfect by every single person we come into contact with, which, you know, you just can start to perceive right away, right? If you actually have to be perfect for yourself and all the gazillion people on the planet all at the same time, when everybody has differing perceptions of what perfection is, like, you are setting yourself up to just always be so horrendously wrong, right? It's like, okay, so we can totally choose that. And if we were willing to be what is, how much more freedom do we create for ourselves? How much more do we actually get to have fun? And how much more do we get to be an invitation to other people in our world, right? And to people on the planet to actually, you know, take a breath and just relax into what living could look like if they weren't so busy trying to construct a life, right? So when you are facilitating these being you adventures, right? Do people ever kind of just look at you like, wait a minute, being me, like I wouldn't even know the first thing about what that is. Like, do you ever kind of get that dog watching television look when you're facilitating?
For other reasons, mainly there's this, so you brought it up best, I think, whenever you said when you're trying to get it perfect, you're busy looking at everybody else's idea of what perfect is, and you cannot be all of those at the same time.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we haven't tried our whole lives. And so I think the thing that most people are shocked by is that the adventure of being you and being you adventures is not about getting you more right. It's about allowing you to be all of you. And that, I think, is the most shocking bit, where you go, wait, you mean I don't get what I want because I get something right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, don't get something you want by doing it right. When you look at the history of people who have created great things and are remembered, you know, for hundreds of years, they didn't do something right. As a matter of fact, they were doing something that was getting them in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And so we have this funny idea, I think, in the marketing age. We've got this idea that if you market and package yourself appropriately, then more people will want you.
Yeah.
And I think maybe now more than ever, people are looking for somebody who actually is that. Like, we're looking for something that isn't that glossy. We're looking for something that isn't that packaged. We're looking for something that isn't that right.
Yeah.
Without necessarily having a sob story, or without necessarily having a I'm so wrong, right? Because we kind of do versions of it. I failed 8 times, but you still made it, you know, or the look how right I got it, or I failed so many times, but now I got it right. This is the story that we keep hearing over and over and over again, and that we keep being sold as the right answer for our own lives. And I think it's really novel for someone to just go, hey, what if that stuff about you that you think is so wrong with you, what if those aren't wrongnesses about you? What if those are actually strengths in disguise? What if those very things that you're like, I can't for the life of me make this different about me because I've tried. I had a class a long time ago that I had created calling something about weeds, because what I had realized was when you go out into a lawn, how much energy do you have to use to fight weeds, right? Like people all the time, they go out and they're pulling things constantly, they're mowing things constantly, they're pulling things constantly. It literally is like a constant battle to get rid of these things that we call weeds. But the weird thing is, a lot of these things we call weeds, first of all, have beautiful flowers to them. If we actually would stop looking at them as weeds, we'd be like, oh my God, this is beautiful. This looks almost like an orchid. I have an orchid that I am battling in my yard. I have a little mini orchid that I've been battling wholeheartedly growing in my yard. I've just thing is wrong and bad because everybody else calls it a weed. How could I actually use this thing? Like, this is beautiful. Or they've got medicinal properties. They're amazing. You can eat them. They have these yellow flowers and then these amazing little puffs that are just delightful to play with. Any kid will tell you as they seed your lawn with more of them. And yet we've decided that they're horrible. And this is exactly how we are, and exactly how the traits that we're trying so hard to get rid of.
For the record, my ringer is off. So what else is possible with that? One moment, please.
So in moments like this, where again, we already sort of mentioned the ringing of the phone and the crying of the dog, but what comedic timing. So one of my favorite tools, or I'm learning to have this as one of my favorite tools, is no form, no structure, no significance.
Yeah.
What that allows for is, if I have the significance of perfection, or I have the significance of good sound quality, or I have the significance of of Rebecca only paying attention to the show, I have to get mad.
Yeah.
If I don't have that significance, then it's comedic, and I get to enjoy it. I get to laugh. I get to appreciate that life is really funny, and that she's got her ringer off, and she can't. Right. This is funny. This is actually, like, if you were writing a movie script, that would be something you'd desire. And somehow you're trying to create the perfectly, whatever, managed,
polished. Yeah.
Show. Now all of a sudden you're judging it. Do you see that the significance of what it is? One, a movie script, things that are terrible are funny. Perfect show, not funny anymore. And again, this is something that we use against ourselves all the time, when we could actually allow for everything to contribute dynamically to our lives, so that it's like, that's hilarious. I adore that.
And it's so much more and I just really perceive too, right? Because what does that create? I just want to look at this example a little bit more too, because what does it create when, right? Like if you're watching this, let's say, and then something occurs, and there's this split second where there's almost this question of okay, so what's actually gonna show up here, right? And it's then what I choose actually contributes to what occurs next, right? Everyone watching has the choice of what they would like to choose, right? And if I all of a sudden got really uptight, or started to kind of freak out, or had to now make excuses or explanations, or get contracted around it, right? What would that actually create for everyone that's participating? And yeah, you can choose to get out of that, and it just is a totally different space when we are together with people who are in that moment of choice saying oh yeah, I actually choose to see what is greater here. You know, I choose to actually be out of the significance of it. Like, right? I'm willing to be in that messy living where shit shows up. Like, that just is, right? And so the more that we can be that for ourselves and not go into that weird contracted freak out control thing of like, oh my gosh, how can I now like get it back, right? The more that we choose something different with a little more space, how much more do we invite the people in our world and in our community and in our family, you know, everyone, to just lighten up a little too? And what if those were the choices that could create a very different future for all of us? And it's so simple, right? I mean, isn't it supposed to be more complicated, Stephanie? I mean, can it really be that easy?
I don't know. Can it be? For some people, I love you using this as an example and showing how in the moment, whenever you choose, you actually open the door to a totally different choice for everyone.
Yeah.
There will be people who are like, at the second that they see something go wrong and us not take it seriously, will also get mad. So, you know, not everything will feel like a contribution to everyone watching, but that's not our job. And somebody brought up something that I thought was really funny not that long ago. And they said, you know, there were all these facilitators and they had their perfect videos and they had their they had their hair done and they had and I thought, well, that's all right. Maybe I'll choose to use a facilitator one day. And then she said, but then I saw this video of this one facilitator and she was like, snuck down into her kitchen. She was trying not to wake anybody up, you know, like her boyfriend up, the kids up, you know, she had no makeup on. She looked terrible. Her hair was a mess. And she made a video and I thought to myself, this is the person that was talking. I thought to myself, now that's somebody I can relate to. And that moment for me was a story that it was actually really inspiring because it shows a couple of things. One, how much people are looking for something real, where they're like, no, sure, you can use these tools whenever you're in an ideal situation or your life already looks pretty good or, you know, whatever. But can you use them whenever you're a mess? Like, can you actually use this stuff when you're a mess? You're acting like, oh, you know, you're just never going to judge yourself again. I'm judging myself right now. You know, like, can you use the tools then? You already look, you know. And that was such a gift to me. It was one of those, I have a few moments in my life that were sort of perfection breaking moments. And that was one of hearing somebody else talk about how inspired they were seeing somebody that was a mess being able to use the tools and that was an inspiration, not something to be judged.
Yeah.
Do you have any really clear moments, like perfection breaking moments that revealed this gift of being perfect?
I have 2 children and like there are so many imperfect moments to choose just one. But yeah, I mean,
the gift of imperfection. Like, I get that we can have those moments where we can't be perfect no matter how hard we try. We have a lot of those.
Yeah. But you know, I definitely, like, there are so many examples, right, where it's just, you know, it's not like, oh, you know, I'm going to make myself seem vulnerable so that I can create this image of me being vulnerable and being perfectly imperfect, right? Because like that exists too, right? And that's also a choice, right? But that still is just another way of creating a facade, right? That charade to cover up what's actually there, right? Those pieces that like we don't want anyone to know exist, including ourselves sometimes, right? Of like these things that we just think are so horrendous. I think you touched on it before, like these things that we think are so judgeable that we don't want anyone to know, like, you know, like, oh my gosh, what if everybody knows I'm actually super irresponsible because I didn't turn off my cell phone, or right, like whatever, as little as that could be, or like as big as it can be, right? But like that thing of like really just showing up, right? Like just showing up and not being attached to the outcome of what it's going to create in other people's worlds, and really staying in the question of like, oh, what is it actually creating in my world? And constantly looking at, okay, and does it work? And if it does, great. Would you like to choose more? And if it doesn't, you know, instead of sticking to, right, there's also that perfection of like sticking to the thing you decided you should be doing, because otherwise if you change it or you choose something different, that now you're flighty, or, you know, you don't stick, you have no stick-to-itiveness or whatever. Like being willing to say like, oh yeah, I chose that, and you know what, it just doesn't work for me, and now I'm willing to choose something else. And that process of choosing can be messy, and it can look messy. So we're not creating messy to be like, look how vulnerable I am, and being willing for all of it to show up, and you know, in its brilliance and in its ickiness, and you know, some of it may be exciting, some of it may be terribly boring to other people and yourself, and being willing to just be with whatever it is and stay in the question. So Stephanie, when you're working with people who are getting stuck in this perfection trap, let's call it that, what are some questions that you like to use with them, or that you like to ask them to begin opening some different possibilities in their world, see things differently?
So different that they'll present being perfect in a different way. So usually there's something very valuable underneath the perfection. Perfection is the thing they've decided will fix the thing, right? So like
the conclusion, the answer.
If I'm perfect, then it'll fix these 8 other things that are actually what I'm really judging about myself. And so what I would look at is there anything, what is it, what's the, if someone said blank about me, it would crush me totally, right? You fill in the blank. You look at, somebody said this about me. If someone said I was irresponsible, if someone said I was mean, if someone said I was unhappy, if someone said I was the saddest person they'd ever met, if someone said, I don't know what that, I'm having trouble finding, I wish I could give you a good example right now of one. Probably irresponsible might be disappointing. There we go.
Disappointing.
For me, that's been one that I'm like, oh, well, that's still a little there. So if someone said, Stephanie is really disappointed, well, no, actually now it just makes me laugh, but Stephanie is disappointing. If that's the thing that would break my heart so much that I would consider not ever coming out of my house again so nobody saw my face, because I didn't want anyone to have that, you know, to think that. So if you imagine walking down a line of people and everybody's thinking this one thing, and you are sort of like, I just want to die or move to another planet, or that's actually the thing that we can really create the change with. Yeah. And when we create that change, the need for perfection disappears and you have a lot more freedom available to you. Yeah. So an exercise that I would give is do that, fill in the blank, and sort of get at what it is that perfection is trying to fix. And from there, I would say get your bars run, maybe while thinking about whatever that is. So you go, oh my gosh, being disappointing, and all the ways you've ever disappointed it while you're getting your bars run, all the ways you've ever disappointed anyone, or maybe watch a movie of someone who's an incredible disappointment to everybody in the world, you know? And what the bars do is clear the electromagnetic components of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And so imagine, in a junkyard, they have electromagnets, and electromagnets, when they're off, they don't pick anything up. It's literally a big hunk of metal that just swings in the air from a crane. The second they turn the electromagnet on, it will pick up an entire car, whoop, like that. Our heads are the same way. If we have the electromagnetic charge to disappointment, we will literally both be pulling it to us at all times, like the junkyard. Any opportunity that is available to us to be disappointing, we will draw, we'll collect it like trash.
Yeah.
And so what happens when you get your bars run, it undoes the thing that is constantly attracting that to you, and the need to not be it as well. All the charge that makes it either I have to choose it, or that's the worst thing ever, or I can't choose it, or have no choice but to choose it. All of those things start to disappear. So you actually begin to have more choice in your life, and the charge on it actually is lessened. So if somebody then, the next week goes, gosh, that was really, that report you did was really disappointing. You'd be like, oh, that's weird. That doesn't, well, what could I do to change it? So now instead of going, oh my God, perfect, I want to go hide, you now can go, oh, well, that's really interesting. What about it didn't work? Do you see how if you're not trying to avoid it, you don't have to attack a person who said you were wrong. You don't have to, you now all of a sudden, instead of going, well, I thought it was fine. I worked really hard on that.
Yeah. And now you can actually even receive from things that are showing up differently than you had anticipated. Right. So it's like you have, when you need it to be perfect in order to feel like you're maintaining this solid structure of what you are, that you've decided like is the only way you can actually function in your life. Right. And it's like now you have to do everything to make sure that it doesn't crack apart and crumble. Right. But the more rigid it is, the more likely it actually is to crack and crumble with any bit of movement.
So in the report example, you hand in a report, you are attached to never being a disappointment. They say that paper was really disappointing. Now see, my brain just went sideways. I was following what you were saying. I loved it. I was going to use it.
Yeah. Well, and now you have to either defend about why your report is fine, or you have to get angry, upset, prove, do all this stuff, and then go home and be in judgment of yourself about how they don't get you, or about how you were so wrong. How could you screw up so badly? Right? Yeah.
What if you never had to do that again? I love that you said that everything could be a contribution. It could actually, somebody goes, gosh, that paper was a disappointment. And you can respond to it instead of reacting to it.
Yeah.
You can actually then also look and go, is what they said even true?
Yeah.
You can't ask that question if you're defending. You can't even, because you assume it already is true. You're like, yeah, I know, but no.
Yeah. I love the story about Thomas Edison, right? And he brings home a letter from school, and he's too young to read it, so he gives it to his mom, and his mom reads it, and he says, "What does it say?" And she says, "Oh, it says, dear Mrs. Edison, your son is a genius, and we are not equipped to teach him at our school. Please consider schooling him at home. Signed, the principal." And so his mother then proceeds to homeschool him and teach him and be his primary educator. And he goes on to become the inventor and an extraordinary contributor that he became. And after she died, at some point, the story goes that he went back and he found that letter from the school. And when he opened it up and anticipated what it would say, he actually found a very different letter. And in fact, it said something more along the lines of, "Dear Mrs. Edison, your son is mentally deficient, and he's no longer welcome at the school. He's now expelled." And right, so it's like, I love this story where it's like his mother, she had this choice. And I mean, what an example to show where choice actually creates, right? If she had chosen to go into the wrongness of herself as a mother, if she had chosen to go into the wrongness of her son for having been judged this way and for having been expelled from school, what would have been created there? What would he have then chosen and become through whatever set of choices followed, right? And in that moment, she chose to create the reality that actually would work for her and that she perceived was possible for her son. And look what that created, right? So your son getting expelled for school for being called pretty much mentally handicapped is generally not what we would call perfect. and so even so she was able to move forward and create something out of that. And what a gift that was. And what gift was it actually that he was able to be homeschooled by his mother? If he had not been expelled from the school, would he have just gone along being mediocre and not actually utilizing his full capacities and skill sets? And, would he have even created everything that he ended up creating in his lifetime? So let's see. Looks like we may have lost Stephanie, but I trust she will be back. There she is. So as we are welcoming Stephanie back, just, looking at that example of how the choices we make truly do create what is possible, even if it looks like a royal fuck up, it can actually be a gift simply by choosing to see, okay, what else can I choose here? There is another possibility, and what is it? So Stephanie,
doing a show about imperfection.
Yay! I love it. Yeah. And it's like this whole thing really is like, where do we separate from ourselves, and how much do we really have to separate from ourselves and the gifts that we can contribute in the world, the capacities that we have, by trying to fit in, by trying to be a part of whatever that mold is that we've decided, right? And I get it. Like, it's, it can be very scary, especially in a culture where perfection is sort of like the key success indicator, that, right? Like, there's this striving for it. There are all these messages about, if you want this, then you must this, right? And so it's like, oh shoot, well, if I'm starting out right out of the gates and I don't have that, then why even bother trying, right? So so that kind of brings me to this other piece of this, that whole sense of never being enough, right? Like, how much of this striving for perfection is based in this sense of never really being enough, and constantly trying to be enough through perfection, all the while in an outward way, right? Trying to get validation, trying to create what we think we should be, using external things, when actually being from the inside out could create so much greater, and actually create more of what would work. So Stephanie, can you talk more about what you know around this place of never being enough, or going to wrongness, thinking everybody else has it dialed in and we're the only one that's trying to catch up and make it to the game on time with all the right stuff?
There's so many things. One of them, a really simple tool, is what's right about this I'm not getting, and what's right about that I'm not getting. So you can play with both of those. If a situation is kind of going sideways, what is right about this that I'm not getting? And what is right about this I'm not getting? And what is right about this that I'm not getting? And what is right about this that I'm not getting? When you ask a question, you actually open the door for something to change. So we can either, it's been really popular for a long time to basically figure out why you're wrong, as if figuring out why you're wrong will give you the tools to get beyond that wrongness.
To be not that.
Yeah, to be able to wrongness. But we've got a number of really pragmatic tools that instead of going about your life always trying to fix your wrongness, you can actually begin living different right now. There is no requirement for you to fix anything. There is no requirement for anything from you except for beginning to play with a few tools. And so if, you know, instead of going, well, I'm going to figure out what's wrong with me and then I'll get better, if you just go, you know what, I'm going to make the choice right now to try something different, not to make me different. I'm just going to try something different. And so if you try today when something's not going right to use that tool and just go, you know, I heard those crazy girls ask the question, you know, what's right about this I'm not getting, I'm going to try that. So what is right about this I'm not getting? You're running 45 minutes late. This happens all the time in my world. I've started trusting it a lot. What's right about this I'm not getting? And then I get there, I'm still there before the person I'm meeting.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, sorry, and I'm an hour late, you know, and you're like,
cool.
You're only 15 minutes later than me. You know, like it turns out that it turns out you missed a huge wreck and you find that out. Or it turns out that, anyway, there's any number of things that you may find out later cognitively and you may not find out later cognitively. But if you play with that tool enough, what'll start to happen is it'll shift your point of view from I'm wrong because this isn't going the way that I wanted it to or thought it should, to I wonder what else I can be aware of here. That is a totally, it sounds like a really tiny shift. It is a totally world altering shift if you begin making that. And again, the other tool, what's right about me that I'm not getting. So the moment that you start in on any self-judgment, you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, ugh, you know, and then you ask the question, okay, well, what's right about, if in your head you go, God, I have such a fat body, then go, what's right about me having this fat body that I'm not getting?
Yeah. And is it actually a fat body? Like body.
Yeah. Starting out right away, that's a huge leap.
Yeah.
That's a leap to go, it's not, you know, what if this isn't a fat, but like some people you like can't get there from here, you know, that's a bridge like 1,000,000 miles away. Like what if there actually is nothing wrong with me having a body that's the shape that it is right now, is so out of most people's worlds that I love being able to introduce a question like, what's right about this fat body that I'm not, because all right, you're not over the judgment.
Yeah.
Right about me being so mean to myself that I'm not getting.
Yeah.
Right about like anything, put whatever you're judging, you know, what's right about me being lazy if you think you're lazy, what's right about, or just what's right about me that I'm not getting, so you can begin to get new information. If you begin asking the question, what's right about me that I'm not getting, then what all of a sudden you're asking for the universe to begin to show you something different.
Yeah.
We are, according to physics, we are tangled together with these quantum particles that are floating around everywhere. There's not a bit of you that isn't also floating around in somebody else's body or floating around, you know, it's this really strange world when you get to a really tiny level. And what that creates for you is that you ask a question like that, it begins to alter the world around you. You're willing to see something different about yourself. You're willing to see beyond the wrongness of you. And what may start showing up is that you begin to see evidence of that around you in the world. I was feeling really, it's rare that I feel really wrong, but this last week, it was Suicide Awareness Week. And woo, it is intense when a whole bunch of people are focusing on something like suicide. You know, a lot of my friends, not even just my Access friends, but a lot of my friends were secretly having really rough weeks, but it was so bizarre and out of character for each one of them that they didn't want to say anything about it until I said, wow, this last week was really intense. I had some of the strangest thoughts going through my head. I knew they weren't mine, but they were really convincing.
Yeah.
And each one of them went, oh my God, you too? I just thought I had really bad PMS. Like another one was like, oh my gosh, I had weird thoughts that I didn't want to be here anymore. And I had weird, right? Where it works that way. And it also works in the positive way. So in the middle of me feeling really weird about myself, I started asking that question, what's right about me and what's right about this that I'm not getting?
Yeah.
3 people go, Stephanie, you are non-solicited, unsolicited. I was not telling them I had problems. I was not telling them I was thinking weird things. I was not telling them any of that. Literally, it was like unsolicited. You're magical. And I was like, magical? What does that even mean? But it got me thinking totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And by asking that question and then seeing what the responses are. Now, you may not get it from people. You may go on a walk in the woods and all of a sudden a beam of light shines down through the trees and all the trees start rustling, and those moments where all of a sudden something changes your point of view. It may be like that. Like you too are part of this magical place called Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
That happen here all the time. The trees are not perfect. The sun is not perfect. It's got sunspots.
Oh.
And so what if we could begin to allow for, and look for something different? Because we've been asking for, looking for, and finding places that were wrong forever. If that's not creating the life that you'd really like to have, why not? It's no less delusional to think about yourself than it is to think well of yourself. They're really delusional because you're way more than you even know that you are. And on all different ways, in ways that other people, if you go to China and you are a loud woman, like you are an outwardly loud, single 40-year-old, you are so wrong there. If you're an active adult, single 40-year-old and loud 40-year-old somewhere else, you can be the life of a party, right? So that where I'm saying that it's equally fictional that you're wrong as you're right. If you're in control reality, meaning you're comparing yourself to everything else, then you will see that you're wrong. If you are no longer comparing yourself with everyone and you're asking, well, what's right about me that I'm not getting? That's not a person. You actually start to see like a different point of view about yourself. So, what if we just what if we had fun? And what if you allowed yourself to be delusional about you and enjoy you and think you're awesome and totally have a great life?
Yeah. I mean, aren't we? Yeah. Because when we think that we're, screwed up and wrong and not enough and yada, yada, yada.
Fully fictional. That is a total.
It is also delusional, right? Like it's all just a creation, right? So, yeah. So
actively, like this isn't an idea. It is fictional that you're wrong.
Yes.
That you're right. You change your point of view and the reality changes. You move from a place where it's not cool to be a loud 40-year-old single woman to a place where it's great to be a loud 40-year-old single woman, and your reality has altered. Why not choose to alter your own reality? Choose to have a different point of view. Create your life the way that you'd like to have it. And if somebody else has a problem with it, then use another tool that we have. Well, that is an interesting point of view. They have that point of view.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because the thing is, like, we, like, whatever we be, right? Like, we're a collection of energies, whatever we be. And it's like, wherever we show up may change, and the parameters may change of what, all the expectations and projections are. But what we be, it's still there as it was when you were in another place, right? And so that comparison piece, really, I see it as like sort of the corner nails of the coffin of the perfection trap, right? Because it's the comparison that really keeps it all kind of nailed together and intact. And when we can kind of dispel that piece, right? and just embrace what it is that we be wherever we are. And we might choose, like, you know, if I am in an Asian country, for instance, you know, it may be greater ease for me to participate in that culture in a particular way, then that might even look different than when I'm participating in another culture. But it doesn't mean that I make it significant. You talked about form and structure and significance, right? And like, when we make things significant, when we give it a meaning, right, and it's like that's the only way, then we continue to fortify that trap, and there's no way out, as opposed to saying like, oh, actually it would be more ease for me and my body to participate in this way, but it doesn't mean I'm actually separating from any of the other ways of being that I have available to me and that I like to choose in different situations. And you know, what if this thing of choosing, right, when we're talking about choice, you know, this thing that came up as you were speaking earlier too, of like, you know, what's right about this I'm not getting, what's right about me I'm not getting, and seeing what is and just choosing something different. It's like, how often do we go to this place of, okay, but I don't want to make now the wrong choice, and even choosing becomes this really scary piece. So Stephanie, when people are in a situation and they're like, oh, just choose, and they're getting paralyzed, right? That whole analysis paralysis, or that thing of like, I don't know what to choose because I may not choose the one perfect choice, right? It may not be the one, and so I can't choose anything. Like, what would you say to someone who is in that sort of situation, or getting out of that sort of situation?
That used to be me. I spent a few years with the word choice in my head. I used to pray a ton and meditate a ton, and you know, all sorts of stuff. And one of the things that I kept asking for was, you know, I will do anything.
Mm-hmm.
What I would love to do with my life is create something for the greater good. Show me what it is.
What is it? Yeah.
And the only answer I ever got back, and I was so mad, was choose. Choose.
Not that. Anything but that. Uh-oh, we've got a...
Exactly.
There we go.
So, and then that means, right? I don't even choose, but choose what? What do you, I mean, okay, I'll choose, but choose what? How do I choose good? You know, how do I choose good? How do I know choose isn't going to be bad or like create something awful on the planet?
The right
thing.
We
get back again, just choose. And so that didn't make sense to me until very, very recently, even though I began getting that message, I say, when I was 20. And what I discovered is that, and what I had a lot of help with, Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, is famous for saying, just choose. But also, choice creates awareness. Awareness does not create choice. What does that even mean? That if you make a choice, you will get the information you're seeking. Or
some information.
Or what? You sound like a robot on my end.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. It seems to be max headrooming a little bit. So yeah, that thing of like, you'll get some sort of information. It may not even be the information you're asking for. It may show up as something completely different.
I think you said for some information. I'm not sure.
Yeah, let's see. You're frozen here. What else is possible with this? So are you with us, Stephanie? Let's see if we can. Okay. All right. So Stephanie, I'm not sure what is going on with the connection. And so either it will change now. Oh, I hear you now though. That's good. That's cool. Otherwise, if you want to hop out of the studio and come back in, that may be another solution. So it was that thing of like, you know, choosing something and something will show up, right? It may not actually be what you were looking for or what you thought might show up. It may look totally, totally different. And yet something is going to show up. There's going to be some new information, and there's going to be another set of choices, an infinite set of possibilities that shows up where you can now just choose again and choose again and choose again and choose again. So let's see. Okay. All right. So she's left. There we go. So she's left. She's going to come right back in. And so I'm just wondering, everybody who's out there watching, you know, what has this been like in your world? You know, are you familiar with analysis paralysis? Are you like, oh my gosh, that's me? You know, have you found that that you've gotten to where you've seen yourself as stuck or unable to move forward with this idea that like, oh, there's so much that I'd like to be and do and create, and yet, you know, I just don't know where to start, or I know where to start, but I'm not sure when's the right time, or, you know, do I do it on my own? You know, all these things that we kind of create as hurdles and obstacles and things to kind of postpone just choosing and starting. So I'd be really curious to hear what that is in your world. And when we say, you know, just choose, right? Like choice, what is that even in your world? And is that kind of a word that is even challenging to hear or to play with? So when you're watching the show, please feel free to make comments also on the Facebook page, and feel free to also message any questions, comments that you have about this. And I would love to have more information from you guys about what shows up for you guys around this topic. So, so basically, what else could we actually choose when it seems like there's no choice available? We talked in our last episode about this no choice universe, right? This situation where sometimes we set up a dynamic where we have this perception that there's really only one way out or no way out of a situation. There's really no choice. Could you just find one thing and be willing to receive whatever information comes through, and just choose again and just choose again, and let go of whether any choice is right or wrong? What if a choice was just a choice? So at the end of last episode, we actually closed with, I asked the question of, what if you could make a gazillion mistakes and never be wrong? Right? And like, how many of you are like, oh my gosh, if I make a mistake, like it's wrong, right? And it's like, okay, so can we reframe that? And can we look at it using that question that Stephanie invited us to, of what's right about this I'm not getting, or what's right about me I'm not getting, right? Can we actually look at what's showing up and just keep choosing forward? So let me just see what is going on with Miss Stephanie and see if she is going to be coming to join. There she is. See, sometimes you just have to ask, and then there it is. I literally was in the process of saying, okay, well, I wonder, let's see, is she going to join us again? There you are, and you're back. Perfect. So weird. See, and this is perfectly imperfect, right? Like, what if perfectly imperfect is just acknowledging what is and letting that be the palette that we use to paint the portrait of the living right? That is now and now and now and now. And it doesn't, sometimes like, what if the painting is the process and we actually don't even hang up the canvas? What if we just, just keep painting for the fun of it? Like, oh my gosh, could we actually just live for the fun of it? Is that even allowed? Yay.
Well,
cool.
Only if you allow it.
Yeah. Oh, what's that? A choice? The C word.
Well, there's something funny here too, because to me, whenever I ask for something or ask for awareness about something or go to create a class or a show or something on a topic, I will get more information about it. So in this case, the whole, what's right about this I'm not getting? Well, we've got lots of examples of how things can go wrong and how you can have fun anyway.
Yes. Yeah. And even like while you were off briefly, I was just talking about like oh my goodness, the train just left the building or the station.
That happened to me earlier. Literally, no words left, right in the middle of a sentence.
Huh. Interesting. Well, luckily for those of you who are viewing, you'll know what I just said. So insert that piece here. Let's see. Okay. Well, I was talking about like the whole, that piece of analysis paralysis, and where, sometimes it's like we go into this thing of like, I can't choose because I may not choose the right thing. And what is it? So we just use all these things to create obstacles to not choose. Right. And, so anyway, we're talking about that, and that's actually not what I wanted to put my finger on.
Well, maybe what you're thinking. Maybe we could play a little choice game.
Ooh.
So choices are only good for 10 seconds. So this is one of the things that can be really, really helpful. I don't know how much you already told them about this, but choices can be really, it can be really helpful. What was it? The train leaving the station is rampant today.
Wow.
Choice only lasts for 10 seconds. Now, what does that mean? So if I make the choice, let's say someone has asked if I want to go on a vacation and they gave me 3 different places. Now, one of the things that used to trip me up a lot is that someone would ask me when I was a little kid, my parents would ask me, what restaurant do you want to go to? You can choose this one, you can choose this one, or you can choose this one. Now, they gave me 3 choices instead of giving me all the choices, not so that it would be a menu that no matter which one I chose, I could get it right? They gave me a limited menu because they'd already decided that I didn't know how to choose and that I couldn't choose. So this was a big story that existed about me when I was a kid that everybody told. Stephanie can't make a choice. That was actually a lie, but I only realized it sort of recently. It was a lie that I couldn't choose. What I was aware of when I went to make a choice, this is how I know you guys have awareness, because you'll know this whenever I tell you about it. So what I would look at is they gave me a choice between, let's say, Wendy's, Subway, or I don't know, let's say McDonald's. I think there were other choices than that, but definitely Wendy's was one of them. Wendy's, McDonald's, or Subway. Now, what would happen is in my head, I'd go, ooh, I'd like to go to Subway. But then whenever I pictured choosing Subway, one of my parents wasn't happy. Or somebody in my, when I'd be like, oh, if I choose that, they won't be happy. And I'd be like, okay, fine. My next one I'd choose Wendy's. And then the other one would be upset. And I'd be like, okay. So then I was like, I didn't really want to choose the third one. So I didn't want to say the third one because I didn't want that one. That looked like indecision because on the outside was just me going like this. I don't know. It wasn't that I didn't know. It's that you have all sorts of information in your head about what other people want.
Yeah, all the right choices that you could be and should be choosing.
And all the horrible things that'll happen when you choose what other people don't want. Now, here's the kicker. I was confused between desiring to choose food that I'd really like to eat or whether that was my primary thing that I wanted to create, or whether I wanted people to be happy. That was the real choice I was trying to make that was so confusing. Do I actually choose the food I'd like to have, or do I choose that people be happy? In which case, there's no scenario that'll actually work here.
Yeah.
And my choice was usually trying to make the most people happy. Now, this is something that for you, if you feel paralyzed all the time by choices, looking at what was it that I was trying to create? What am I trying to create that I feel actually so confused about? Is it actually the choice at hand, Turks and Caicos, or, the Dominican Republic, both of which are destroyed right now? Like, is it choosing between those? Is that actually the choice that you're stuck with? Or are you actually stuck with the choice of trying to make other people happy, trying to fix a relationship? And being really honest about the choice you're trying to make can also start to clear things up a lot.
Yeah.
Because if the choice that would make someone happy is different than the choice that is where you would like to go, you can feel stuck. But if you know that you're like, no, what I'm really doing is working on my marriage.
Yeah.
Which of these choices, so we're going to shift it because you think it's making the other person will make your marriage better. You've already made that choice. But if you start to go, what am I actually trying to create here? What is it that I'm confused about? Yeah. So am I trying to create a great vacation for me? Am I trying to make someone happy, or something else? Oh, something else. So I'm trying to make my marriage better. Okay, cool. Well, if that's my target, well, now the choice is totally different, because in each one of those scenarios, going where you want to go for a vacation gives you one answer, like one answer, one chunk of information. Asking what will make everybody else happy will give you different information. Asking what will contribute to making your relationship greater will give you a different bit of information. So now you go, wow, I really was trying to do this vacation to make my relationship greater. What choice could I make with this that would make my relationship greater? Now you've dispelled a lot of the lies that are actually getting in the way of you being able to make a choice clearly with total ease. If you have a secret agenda as to what it is you're trying to create with your choice, you won't let yourself know what it is. Do you think it might look like confusion or anger or something like that instead of clarity? So if you begin to get clear on what your agenda actually is with the choice that you're making, you can either change your agenda or you can be really clear what the agenda is and then ask a question about what will create that. And then all of a sudden you're functioning totally different. You're no longer in the confusion of what do I actually want here? It's usually not a problem with knowing what you want. I'll tell you how you know. I'm going to give you a choice. What restaurant do you want to go to, Rebecca? Do you want to go to the Hill? Do you want to go to the Farmhouse? Do you want to go to Rathbun Steak?
Oh, I want to go to the Farmhouse.
I was like, say you don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, we'll go to the Hill.
Okay.
So, how often do we actually, and I want to go to the Farmhouse too, but but how often do we say we don't know because we feel that sense of conflict or
that conflict and struggle?
But the second that somebody else gives an answer, they go, okay, well, fine. You don't know what you want. I want to go to the Hill. All of a sudden, everything in you goes, ugh. And then you go, okay, I do have a point of view about this. I definitely don't want to go to that one. Say one of the other two, right? This is why men hate when they ask, when you tell them to choose where you want to go to dinner and you say you don't know. This is why they hate it, because you do know where you want to go. You don't know that you know where to go, but the second they start telling you different places that they've chosen, you think they're an idiot, because obviously that's not what you want tonight, right? Like Chinese, ew! We had Chinese last night and the night before and the night before. I don't want it again. Yes. Okay, fine. We'll have pizza. Ew! You know that I feel all bloated after eating. Okay, well then fine. Let's go to the grocery store. I so don't want to go to the grocery store, right? You definitely know what you want. So maybe pretend like you're your own boyfriend if you're a girl. And just in your head, have your boyfriend give you a bunch
boy.
Or boy. Yeah, exactly. Like, have them suggest things in your head. Have your dog suggest things. Well, Mom, I'd love to go to the dog park. I don't want to go to the dog park. No, that's sort of a joke, but you probably will be more clear about what you desire than you even know that you are.
And, this is really that piece too of like where, where you start to actually function from within out, right? As opposed to trying to scramble from outside and then just react to create your life. So it's like those 10-second expirations, right? For every choice, right? And you say, okay, I'll go to this restaurant, and then everything kind of is like, that's not actually what I'd like to choose, right? Like in those moments, what if Perfectly Imperfect was to just totally be vulnerable there and be like, ooh, you know what? Now that you actually said that one, like, yeah, that actually isn't it for me. And, say some other things, and just knowing that, hey, I maybe am not clear on exactly what it is, but like, would you be willing to be with me in this and just like say some different things, and and then I can actually keep choosing and see what shows up. Like, can we just choose and see what shows up and be like, oh yeah, more of that, please. Or, no, not really. Okay, what else you got? Right? And like, it seems so weird to think of living that way. And like, how much is it like, you're supposed to be a clear thinker, right? Someone asks a question, you have an answer, you act, and you repeat, right? And like, that means that you can function as a highly functioning individual on the planet, right? And yet, how many times in doing that or trying to perfectly do that and be that, do we end up on a vacation that could be totally amazing if we could just acknowledge like what we were actually choosing or not choosing, right? And how much of it ends up that we're now on a vacation where we're just in resentment of the other person, we're in resentment of ourselves, and where we could be creating something amazing, we're actually creating against ourselves, right? And in judgment.
I think that there's something really big with that. Like, looking at the vacations, it reminds me, there was a vacation I went on years ago, and looking at what am I choosing for, I actually in that moment was choosing because the person that I was with had an impossible time choosing. It was so hard for him to make any choices, any decisions. He trumped me in the not being able to make a choice. And so I had, I'd said, hey, well, why don't you pick somewhere for us to go? And when he brought up where we were going to go, it was San Francisco during rainy season. And in that moment, I'm going to move because I need to plug in.
Cool.
And in that moment, what I realized was, now I have a choice here. So I made the choice, looking at what my choices are. I actually made the choice to give him control over our vacation. Okay. So that was a choice.
Yeah.
That was not a requirement. That was a choice.
Yeah.
And then what I got back was one of those moments like, San Francisco during rainy season? But here's where knowing what you chose for matters.
Yeah.
Choosing the ideal place would have been not choosing San Francisco during rainy season. It would have been choosing San Francisco during not rainy season, or choosing something else.
Yeah.
But since I knew what I had made the choice for, I'd made the choice to empower him, which is a little superior, actually. Like, now I know that. But at the time, I didn't.
That's another show.
Superior Bitch is a totally different show. And so, but what I did was I looked at that and I went, great, that sounds like a great idea. Not being attached to the outcome of it, but being attached to what my target was, right? Like not being attached, but choosing, like following through with this target that I had set of being someone who empowered him to not be wrong and to find out what his choices create, right? And so what did I do? I could have, here's where, if I wanted him to be wrong and to be wrong for not choosing perfectly, I would have made sure to not be prepared so we had a horrible time. But instead I went, okay, cool. That's the choice that he made. Now what choice would I like to make? I have a bunch of choices. I can choose to be miserable. I can choose to say no. I can choose to correct him. I can choose to blah, blah, blah. I can choose to make him wrong. And then I was like, or
I'll get really awesome rain boots.
I did. I bought rain boots for me. And I asked him, I said, hey, do you have any waterproof shoes? And he's like, I think mine will work. I said, well, what do you mean you think yours will work? He's like, well, I think they have a hole in the bottom of them, but I think they'll be all right. And I thought to myself of him walking around in sloppy shoes. And I was like, oh, that just like, no. So I got him waterproof shoes and I got an amazing raincoat. Was totally comfortable walking around in the rain the whole time. We had an amazing time. And, you know, looking at these places where it was like, is that ideal? Is that perfect? No, it was raining. It was terrible weather. That's not perfect. It was imperfect and it was fun because
it worked.
Yeah, but it only worked because I made choices that allowed for it to work. Yeah. Like, where are we making, like, if you choose something, will you allow it to work?
Yeah.
If you've decided that you're a terrible chooser, you may not allow it to work. You may make sure that you get punished from every wrong choice that you make, or every imperfect choice that you make.
And what we end up doing then too, what I notice is every time we do that with ourselves, then we also do that with everyone else in our lives.
Yeah, if I'm going to be wrong, you're going to be wrong.
Yeah. And one of the things about this that I love as an example too, Stephanie, is this piece of like just acknowledging where we are choosing, right? Because like you chose to go, but you could have avoided being aware of your choice, right? And then the whole trip could have been this story of how this is happening to you and how he made this choice and now you're stuck in the rain and now you're cold and you're wet and, you know, he should have known better. And then maybe even why the heck did you choose it and what's wrong with you that you would be in this situation, right? Like there's all these places that we can go. And when we can like just choose and then also just start building that muscle of just acknowledging what we're choosing and right. And so it's like, I'm choosing, wow, I chose that. I'm not going to judge it. And I'm going to keep choosing and I'm not going to judge it. And I'm going to keep choosing.
Now I chose that. It created this. Now what can I choose? Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm choosing this. Ooh, new information. Okay, cool. I chose that. Now what can I choose?
Yeah. Oh, I'll have more of this. Wow. I didn't even know this is possible. Or, oh, wow, this is definitely not working. Okay, so what else can I choose now?
Yeah, that's not what I thought would happen with this choice. Okay, cool. So now what choices do I have available? That's the brilliant thing. The 10-second increments is not theoretical. If you walk out of your house right now, like right now, 10 seconds, there are a few things I can do in 10 seconds. One of them, I can sit here. I can shift or I can get up. Okay, well now that was 10 seconds. I chose to get up. Okay, now in this 10 seconds, I can choose what direction to go. Okay, I'm gonna go this direction. Okay, now that 10 seconds is up. Now I have these, like the couch is in my way this way, so I could choose to bump into it if I want to, which is often what we do with our more like lofty choices. But really I'm like, okay, well, there's a clear path here. There's a clear path where I just came from. I could go back and sit down or I could continue walking. Okay, so, all right, new 10 seconds. Well, now I have different paths available. It's really clear to actually see it whenever you start walking around. You go, oh, no, really, my choice creates both awareness and different possibilities. Because if I walk out my door, I have a totally different set of possibilities than if I'm here in my house.
Yeah. And if you stood up or didn't stand up, right? And how much do we like get up and then walk into the couch and then we're like, oh, well, last time I got up, I walked into the couch. So I guess I'll just never get up again.
And you're like, there were a lot of other directions you could have walked.
Right. But how much do we do that in our life where it's like, oh, well, I made a choice once and it didn't work. So
it didn't turn out well. Right.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that question of what else is possible. It's such a simple question. And Stephanie, you were mentioning the quantum entanglements and the quantum particulates and all the fun energies that are actually creating on a level that my brain is just so curious about. And, I wonder what level I have awareness about all that. And it's like, okay, all of that is going on too. And what would it take to actually just ask the question and be willing to receive what can show up and what can change? And would we be willing to allow that, to contribute to us choosing forward and choosing and choosing?
Is that we can use things that are well beyond our cognitive comprehension.
Yeah.
And that's so cool. You don't have to understand anything, but if you ask a question, you're engaging parts of the universe that you may not even know exist. Who cares? Is it magnetic? Does it work? I love you keep bringing it back around to, does it work? Does it work? Does it work? If it works, awesome. And that's one of the things that perfection doesn't care about whether something works or not. Perfection cares how something looks.
Yeah.
This is the whole Stepford thing, right? Like, it looks right, so it is right. Shut up, I'm not happy. It doesn't matter that we're not happy. It looks, we have all the pieces. They're all put in place just the way we like them. And our house is always clean, and the kids are always
perfect.
Have really good grades in school and look right, we don't care that they're doing drugs in the basement as long as they look fine, It's that element. Like perfection includes all hidden, it's funny. So consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. Mm-hmm. Perfection judges everything.
And excludes and separates from everything.
And then yes, exactly.
And this perfection trap, it really is, it's that definition of insanity, right? Like choosing the same thing over and over again.
This time when I choose to be perfect, it'll work out better.
This time I'll get it right.
It never works out. So, if you're not choosing perfection, you have the choice for happiness. So it's up to you, choose to be happy or choose to be perfect. It's up to you.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Wedgie time.
I know. Was that too mean?
No, I love it. So Stephanie, this has been amazing for me. And I have a sense that the viewers may have had a little fun today too. So I love this conversation, and I really look forward to having you on the show again. Before we wrap up, I would love to ask you, for people who would like to play with you more, perhaps have a photography session, perhaps have a facilitation session with you, perhaps be in a class or whatever, what would you like to invite them to so they can actually have more Stephanie in their world?
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, they can come play with any of those. Unfortunately, those do all have different websites. The easiest one, I suppose, if you want to come to a photo session with me, which is basically one of the things that I do with people that I'm working with, is we actually look at becoming, how we were talking about making choices and actually looking at what it is that your target is. What is it that you're actually trying to create here? One of the things that we do whenever we're doing photography sessions is looking at where you're congruent with what you would like to create in the world, and then teasing out and pulling in more that can contribute to that and gift to that. And we do that while shooting. So we get to play with that, and then you can try on things. So, that whole feeling like there's a lot of risk making a single choice in a photography session, we can actually explore. All right, so you're looking in your business right now in these 3 different directions that you could go. Let's play with going in this direction. Let's actually choose that right now. Let's pull, and then I use a whole bunch of different tools to actually create that. And then we play shooting as that. So now you are that person that has chosen that path. Let's play there. And then we basically like come back. Now we're in the present. All right, let's make this other choice, right? So let's go shoot so we'll shoot as if you have made this choice, and let's go play with you having chosen that. And then we're like, okay, now we're back to the present moment again. And it's like, okay, that other choice that you had in mind. And now sometimes what happens is we go and we play in that too. And we're like, all right, let's choose that. Now let's go, let's shoot as that. Now sometimes what happens is after playing around with the other two, the third option, they're like, oh, I don't even know why, that's not even relevant anymore. So sometimes what happens over the course of a shoot is that people discover things. It's sort of like that choosing a pizza, choosing Italian, you know, that kind of thing, where all of a sudden it becomes very clear, oh wait, I don't want to be in the world as that. I don't want to choose that. So my photography website is Stephanie Rich. It's weird. There's no www. It is actually just in your browser window, put Stephanie Richardson .photo. That's it. Awesome. So instead of .com, it's .photo. So Stephanie Richardson .photo, and that will take you to the photography website. And then if you want to just like contact me or like see the different videos and stuff that I create, Facebook's always a great option, and I'll try and keep everybody abreast as to all the other things that are happening too. So Stephanie Richardson on Facebook. It's kind of hard to miss me.
Excellent. And we will put all of the links in the information at the bottom so that they can get to you, find you in the world, and choose to play with you in any way that is fun. So that's awesome. And I have personally seen not only photographs from these shoots, but also seen her in action. And it is really, really fun to watch. And that whole thing of coaxing out, right? Being you in the world, what is that? And when it's like, when you take all these pictures of all the things that you think you should be, and then suddenly you've been facilitated all out of that box of perfection, and all of a sudden you get to emerge as you truly be, to have that show up on film and in a photograph is just magical. So,
well, and weirdly, rumor has it, it's fun.
I've heard that and seen that
too.
Unlike
some of the other it may sound torturous, but I have told repeatedly, oh my God, that was fun.
That was actually fun. Yeah. Absolutely. So that is wonderful, Stephanie. We will put all of that information into the description below so people can contact you. It has been amazing to have you here on the show. For those of you watching, if there are questions that you have pertaining to this show, about possible future shows, any questions, comments that you have in general, please submit them to us through the Facebook page for the Art of Creation show. Please like the page and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Share this with your friends. What can we create in the world simply by choosing? What choices will you be making? And I wonder what's going to show up between now and next week. Have fun with that. Stephanie, thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.